Hello, welcome to the West Ham Way YouTube. Myself, Mark Carlaw, and Riley Finch. Riley, Mark Noble has now returned to the football club. We've known about it for some time, haven't we? X had said that the club were lining them up for a return, and it was always going to be a sort of director role. So it's now been confirmed by the club he's going to be a sporting director, starting in January next year, which is very exciting. It's a funny one, this, because I do get the feeling that maybe this was brought forward, this announcement. Because the timing of it does seem quite suspect in terms of where we are. I mean, maybe I'm wrong and it's just coincidental, but it feels a little bit like that. But overall, mate, I mean, in terms of the announcement itself, I'm very, very pleased. It's nice to see, the club are bringing in someone like Mark who understands the club and, he's a West Ham through and through. And I think it can only serve as a positive, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get like a big role in the club, I would have thought, in terms of developing the youth, in terms of squad morale. Sort of, I've spoken before about him being this segue between the fans, between the board, and between the players and manager. He can be that guy who could just bring it all together. Sort of be that focal point for everybody, make sure everyone's on the same page, buying into the same sort of project. The only thing, like the sporting director role, it's a bit of a weird one. Like, not a lot of clubs actually do adopt that, and when they do, it's very hit or miss whether it works or not. And it's honestly impossible to tell if it does work or not. But I think just from a number one, a PR sort of standpoint, it's great. You'd love to have Mark at the club. From a youth standpoint, that's going to be great for us as well. And I do think he's going to put his two pennies worth in when it comes to the board. I don't think he's going to be in the role just to kind of be a yes man, which obviously you do worry about sometimes with sort of board members like GSB. I think he will put his two pennies worth in. I think he wouldn't have taken the role if he wasn't going to be accountable, if he wasn't going to put his heart on his sleeve. So it's great to have someone, basically a fan in the boardroom, really. So, I mean,
absolutely,
can only see it as being a positive.
I agree, mate. I agree. I think the role as well. It's going to be, like you say, in terms of what he can bring to the club, which we know he can. Is that his man-to-man management? I think would be fantastic. He'll be involved with the, as you say, the youth setup, the academy, and also I quite like the idea of him being involved with first new players coming into the club, setting them in, and just being that focal point. I just think it'll help everybody. I think it could even, let's be honest, help Declan Rice. Having Mark around again. I'm sure he speaks to him regularly in terms of getting advice from him in terms of taking over from captain as captain of the club. So I think I do see it as a positive. The one thing that does kind of leap out at me a little bit though is the changes that are going on at West Ham at the moment. I mean, so we've obviously got a new big key shareholder in the club, Daniel Krasinski, who has invested quite heavily already in the football club, and I think we saw that over the summer. And then on top of that as well, which kind of went a little bit unnoticed over the summer because of obviously the transfers that were grabbing the headlines, was that Daniel Krasinski brought in another board member, and it was someone from JP Morgan, who was an executive there. I mean, for me, that sort of screams that things are really changing at West Ham. And long gone are the days of David Sullivan calling the shots from, his bathtub in the garden.
Bathtub in the garden.
Yeah, or hot tub possibly. I think those days are long gone now. I think these are we've got a proper board and how they operate, and you do wonder how this sits with David Moyes now, because obviously Mark's coming into the club and Mark's going to be involved in the football side of things. They've made that quite clear in the announcement. He will be working alongside David Moyes. He will be quite closely and obviously Moyes is saying, publicly saying he's very happy with it, and I'm sure he is, but you do get the feeling there's a lot of change going on. It does feel already very different for how we were the last couple of years. Although things have been very good on the pitch, been great, there's a lot of change going on, and I do hope having Mark back will be a big positive, and I do think it will be. It's just going to be interesting to see how the land lies over the next few months, and in terms of when he starts and what impact he's really going to have. Because you do get the feeling he's going to have quite a fair bit of say, and like you say with Mark, he's not someone that's going to be quiet. I don't think he'd just sit back and be a passenger. I think he'll want to make things better. And I mean, as you say, the positive, and I think like you just said it there, is that basically we've got a West Ham fan, a diehard West Ham fan in the boardroom, it can only be a positive for us, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things you said were quite interesting there. Does it almost seem like maybe Krasinski might get a bigger ownership of West Ham, that he might start bringing in his own people, that surely but slowly GSB are going to get phased out and he's going to sort of buy them out a little bit.
You'd think so. I think that's always kind of been the plan. I think that's always. I mean, GSB have always stressed that they were never going to sell the club, but at the end of the day, they don't have to really, do they? They can just sell percentages. They could always still be involved. I mean, I think even Terry Brown is still a shareholder at the club and still got a say somewhere along the line. But ultimately, it's money for old rope for them, isn't it? I would say so. I think Krasinski has more sway than we realise. I think the fact that he's bringing in his own board of directors in, and the fact that we've suddenly seen a big change at the club. Mark's now coming in. We're seeing heavy investment.
That would have been a GSB decision, I think. I don't think Krasinski would have made that decision.
What, on Mark? Do you think?
Yeah,
so?
I feel like that is a GSB decision. To be honest, I think they understand the club and its values and the way. No disrespect to Krasinski at all, but obviously they've been there longer. They know what Mark Noble means to West Ham. I feel like that seems like a GSB decision as opposed to a Krasinski's position. I think he's the kind of guy where he'd want someone who's actually, not that he's not qualified, but a bit more qualified for the role, pay big money for someone that could actually come in and implement his vision. So I think that's a GSB move personally, which obviously kind of contradicts what I sort of just said in terms of, is Krasinski going to be the major shareholder? It's impossible to know, really, isn't it? Who's making these decisions and how much of a say Krasinski gets or GSB gets. It's really complicated, isn't it?
It is. And we've obviously got this looming date. I think it's March 23 of when this contract clause expires in terms of the ownership of the stadium and things like that, and also the club itself. Because I know that the club are desperate for to own London Stadium, but I do think we're about to see a big changes at West Ham, and I think that we're starting to see that already. The landscape is certainly shifting a bit, but. I'm very positive about that. I'm pleased about how things are panning out. And in terms of Mark Noble returning, I think it can only be a positive for the club. I would say that the timing of it was probably brought forward. I would say that's my gut feeling on it, and I think the fans most would agree on that. It does feel a little bit like, let's do it now while everyone's feeling quite miserable, just to give everyone a bit of a lift and try and distract away from what's going on. But that aside, whether it be or whether that is or not, I don't know. But I am really pleased about it. I love the fact that Mark Noble's coming back, and it'd be great to see him around the place again. And let's hope it does have that positive impact that we all hope it will have.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised to see some people actually not very happy with the appointment of Mark Noble, to be fair. You see people like Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard getting roles at clubs maybe they shouldn't, just because of the nostalgia. For instance, Lampard at Chelsea. And I think a lot of people are a tiny bit worried that maybe we're giving the role to Noble because of his loyalty, because of his presence in the club, as opposed to the fact that he's qualified. But I don't see that being the case at all. I think he's got an insane work ethic. I mean, the guy's had 6 months holiday. I mean, he kind of insinuated to us that he was going to have a big old holiday and spend some time with the kids, but he's fed up with that now. He's clearly just wants to get back. All he knows is West Ham. He's got an amazing work ethic. He's going to work hard in the role. He's going to get the badges. He's going to, and if he gets things wrong, he's going to make every single stride to get it right again. So like you say, I think it can only be a positive for West Ham, and I'm really excited to see him in that kind of role.
Me too, mate. I agree. I think Mark will. We know Noble. He bleeds claret and blue, and he'll work very, very hard in that role, and he'll want to be a success and push the club onwards. And that's what we want. We want someone there. And the thing is that you feel with Mark, that if he does do well in the role, which there's no reason why he won't. But let's not forget as well that Mark's been studying for this. He went to Harvard over the summer to carry out a course on this. So it's not as if they've just sort of picked him out of nowhere while he was sitting around and think, oh, he will just fill the role, chuck him in a suit, he's fine. I think he does appear to have worked hard to get to where he is, and they've even emphasised that he's got a lot of learning for him to do as well in the role. I think he'll do great. I think he'll fit it very well. And the fact he's a one club man, he could be there for years in that role, and push onwards, and he could even go even higher in the club, So I only see it as a positive at the moment. And to be fair, it probably has worked in a way to lift everyone a little bit, give the mood a little bit of a lift, and distract us a little bit from what's going on. Because I don't know about you, but I can't even read about West Ham much at the moment, and so, especially in terms of the football side of it, and in terms of the league table. So it's a welcome relief to have something to actually be a bit positive about. And no, I mean, I wish Mark all the very best in the role. I'm absolutely chuffed for him.
I mean, just sort of a closing question for you, mate. Do you think this kind of closes the door for a managerial / coaching career for him? Do you think he's maybe gone to the more sort of, that kind of side of the behind the scenes sort of side, and that
Yeah.
maybe, because I think a lot of people expected him to go into the coaching role for maybe like the youth team or whatever, and even a
Yeah.
future West Ham manager one day. Do you think that's kind of shown his intentions? He's kind of closed the door off to that a little bit.
I think so. I think when I spoke to X, and I think X had spoken on the show, the podcast about this on Patreon previously. I think Mark's always wanted that kind of position. I mean, let's not forget a lot of other players do that, go down the more corporate side of things. You've got Edu at Arsenal, who's the sporting director, and he's been doing that, and it's quite common. I do think some players
Overmars at Ajax as well.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. He did. Well, he got sacked, didn't he?
He did, but just one of the names that comes to mind.
With Mark. But yeah, yeah, exactly. So I do think it's more common than it used to be, possibly. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think Mark's got an interest in the football in terms of that side of it. I don't think he wants to be a manager. And sometimes you got to look at it and think, who can blame him? Do you know what I mean? I'd much rather be behind the scenes working and trying to, in terms of the structure of the club and helping in recruitment and things like that. And then let's be honest, and on a match days, the spotlight's not on you. You know what I mean? You don't have to want to deal with the flack that the manager does. But that's my gut. I do think that this would be it for Mark. I think that's the route he wants to go down. I'd be surprised if he suddenly ditches it and wants to be involved on the pitch and managing and things like that. I don't think that will happen. No. But yeah, fair play to him. I think he'll suit that role really well. I really do. I think he understands the club, the ethos of West Ham, and the fact that his main objective has always been for West Ham to do well and to be successful. So as long as he carries that into this role, I can't see him being anything else but a success, to be honest.
Well, there's only one Mark Noble, mate.
Exactly. Thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers.